This is the second lesson for special right triangles and trigonometry. This one's called the Pythagorean Theorem Converse. So what we're going to do this time is kind of remember what converse represents. So when we're talking about converse, and I'm going to switch colors here, we're going to talk about, remember we talked about in logic, converse is like a shoe, which is kind of like a flip-flop. And if we had P, then Q, we would then have Q, then P, because the converse of our conditional statement is just changing Q and P. Now, we talked about the Pythagorean theorem last class. The Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared. This color combination really is hurting my eyeballs, and I bet it is yours too. So let's try black. Okay, so if we start off with a squared plus b squared equals c squared, we're starting off not knowing, no, I'm sorry, they gave us the fact that it is a right triangle. Now what we're doing is we're backtracking and we're trying to find one of the side lengths using that property. But what if we don't know if our triangle is a right triangle and we were just given the side lengths? So it was backwards, and that's what this lesson is going to be about. So we're switching it. We're trying to prove whether or not it's a right triangle by looking at the side lengths. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and talk about the lesson on the Pythagorean theorem converse, and then we'll practice a little bit given some side lengths. Now, we're going to test if a triangle is a triangle. That's our very first step. Because if they just give us side lengths, we don't know if it's a triangle yet. So, remember, we talked about this before winter break. I think even before Thanksgiving. The sum of the triangle lengths of any two sides of the triangle are greater than the length of the third side. Okay, so in the figure, the following inequalities hold. So we need to make sure that, and remember we just talked about making sure the two smaller sides are greater than the third side. So if I were to say, okay, are these three sides going to make a triangle? So I could start off with 3, 4, and let's go for 5. So if we're looking at this, 3, 4, and 5, I'm sorry, 2, 4, and 5, I'm going crazy. Okay, we're going to go ahead and think about it like a segment. So one side is 5, one side is 2, and the other side is 4. Adding those together, 4 plus 2 is going to give us 6, and that is greater than 5. So when we actually draw this out, this triangle would work. But if I had 1, 3, and 5, that triangle will not work because 1 plus 3 has to be greater than 5, and it's not. Okay, it's really just 4. So we'd have 2 plus 4 has to be greater than 5, and this one is, so it does work as a triangle. Okay, so that's the first step in determining whether or not we have a right, obtuse, or acute triangle. It's determining whether or not we have a triangle in the first place. Okay, so Pythagorean theorem converse. Do you remember the converse means? Yeah, we talked about that already. It means that we're going to reverse from what we originally knew. Last lesson, we knew that it was a right triangle, so therefore we can find a missing side length. In this case, we don't know if it's a right triangle at all. So we're proving that it's a right triangle by looking at A, B, and C and seeing if it is going to be equal. Because with our Pythagorean theorem, our equation is a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. So that when the two leg lengths equal the length of the hypotenuse, it is definitely a right triangle. Now, this is where it gets a little interesting because the way it's set up is if you start off with the hypotenuse first, the greater than symbol is going to represent obtuse triangle, which is convenient because it's greater than 90 degrees. As far as one angle is greater than 90 degrees is going to remind you that, hey, that's obtuse. Now, if our hypotenuse is less than the sum of the other two sides, then it's going to end up being an acute triangle. So just remember that it's less than. Okay, I'm going to give you a moment. Please pause the video if you need some time to write this down. All right, so looking at example 1, the directions. So first determine if the three side lengths could form a triangle. Recall from earlier that the sum of the two smaller sides must be larger than the third side. So if yes, then we can go ahead and classify the triangle further as acute, right, or obtuse, because acute is going to be less, right is going to be equal, and obtuse is going to be greater, as long as we start off with c squared, and a plus b is going to end up being on the right side. All right, so first step, determine if it's a triangle. And we're going to use the triangle inequality theorem. All right, so take the two smaller sides. Is 3 plus 7 greater than 9? Okay, 3 plus 7, that's going to give us 10. 10 is greater than 9, so yes, this is a triangle. We can go ahead and move on to our next step, which is testing it. Okay, so step 2, we are going to take the longest side, which remember the hypotenuse is always the longest side. So that's going to be 9. And let me start with the equation first. So we have c squared. I don't know if it's going to be greater than, less than, or equal to. That's what we're trying to test. A squared plus b squared. All right, so this is definitely the hypotenuse because it's the longest side. So I'm going to substitute that in for c. Question mark, don't know yet. 3 squared plus 7 squared. 9 squared is 81. Still a question mark, but we're going to figure it out soon. 9 plus 49. Okay, so 9 plus 49 is going to give us 58. And we have 81. So 81 is going to end up being greater than 58. And remember when we talked about greater, that's going to end up giving us an obtuse triangle. So this is an obtuse triangle where one angle is larger than 90 degrees. Okay, so that's for example 1. The next problems are going to have the same steps. So what I'd love for you to do right now is go ahead and pause the video and work on the next 4 examples, and then we'll come back together and I'll show you the work. I changed my mind. I'm going to go ahead and work these problems out, but I'm going to do it at a faster pace. So the first step is we're going to go ahead and determine whether or not it's a triangle. That's always going to be our first step. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take the two smaller sides, which are 20 plus 1, and we're going to see if it's going to be greater than 29. Now remember, you're not squaring. This is just a triangle test, so you can put that off to the side. Triangle test. Okay, 20 plus 21 is going to give us 41. That is greater than 29, so that works. We are working with a triangle. Woohoo! So next step is we're going to go ahead and take a look and see what the converse is going to be as far as testing that. So we're going to take the greatest side. Wow, I circled and erased at the same time. That's special. So we have hypotenuse, which is going to end up being 29 squared. Question mark, because we're not sure. And then the two smaller sides, so 20 plus 21 squared. Expanding that out, we're going to end up with 841, still question mark. 20 squared plus 21 squared is going to give us 841. So that's going to be equal. So when we're equal, that means it's a right triangle. We can classify that. All right, great job if you got that. Let's go ahead and take a look at number 3. So number 3, first step, triangle test. So we're going to go ahead and take the two smaller, which is 4 plus 11, see if it's greater than 16. 4 plus 11, I can already tell right now, is going to give us 15. This is not a triangle, so you would just stop right here because we can't classify. It will break down and end up in one of those categories, but it's not a triangle to begin with, so we have to stop. Okay, so example 3, failed. But if you got it right, awesome, good job. So looking at number 4, if this is a triangle, it's really cool because I can tell that it's going to be an isosceles triangle. Two sides are the same. So let's go ahead and see if it's going to end up being a triangle, first of all, and then second, if it's acute, right, or obtuse. So triangle test. 17 plus 17 is greater than 22. That is definitely true. I can tell by just looking at it that that's going to definitely make a triangle. So it's 2034, which is greater than 22. Perfect. Next step is we need to go ahead and see if it's acute, right, or obtuse. So go ahead and find the hypotenuse, which is going to end up giving you 22 if, or the greatest side. I shouldn't keep calling it a hypotenuse because it's only a hypotenuse if it's a right triangle. So I need to stop doing that. Okay, so the largest side is 22 squared, question mark. And then the two other side lengths, 17 plus 17 squared. Okay, so 17 squared is going to give us 289 plus 289. 22 squared is 484. Adding those two together, we end up with 578. And on this side is 484. This is definitely larger, 578. So what we can assume is since it's less than, this is going to be a little acute triangle. Woohoo! All right, let's go ahead and move on to example 5, our last and final example. Let's go ahead and first do triangle test. Wow, I keep erasing. Again with the eraser. All right, so two smaller sides, 18 plus 24. Let's see if it is not equal to, but greater than 30. That's going to give us 30. 42 is greater than 30, so that definitely works. It is a triangle. Next step, take the largest side, which is 30. So that's going to be 30 question mark 18 squared, don't forget the squared, plus 24. All right, so we're going to go ahead and square both of those. 300 squared is going to give us 900. Question mark, still need to figure it out. So we have 18 squared, which is 324. 24 squared, which is 576. Adding that together, we're going to end up having 900. 900. Hey, check it out, it's equal. So whenever it's equal, it's going to give us a right. Whoa, what am I doing there? This is going to give us a right triangle. There we go, much better. Okay, so that's the last of our problems for today, except for if you have Khan Academy assignment to work on, you can go ahead and work on that. The best you can, and if you need any help, please make sure you're asking questions to whoever's in the room, and or also Mr. Bill. Not Bill, Mr. Bull. I do that from time to time. Okay, he can definitely help you out. It should be an email or on Google Classroom, hopefully by now. I'm organized and I've got that up there for you guys, and I hope you guys are doing well. See you soon.